Franchise mode is often thought of as the forgotten area of the Madden NFL series. We've seen it become a shell of itself in recent years, but it appears that EA is finally trying to dig the mode out of its rut as Madden 20 looks to move the mode in the right direction with the most changes we've seen in years. There's definitely still a ways to go with the mode, but creative director Mike Young says that franchise has come back to being a big focus for the game, and it will continue to be. He says, "We just want to add this rich depth and immersion to the mode, so we're starting to think of it more like a sports RPG." While last year was decent with the addition of custom draft classes, specialty depth chart positions, and the new development system, it's time to really make that first big step forward with Madden 20. So here is what we have for Madden 20 that we know. They just recently did a live stream and they also posted their article revealing all of the big changes that are coming to franchise mode. So first off, one of the big things this year, probably one of the biggest things, is the new scenario engine. So what this is it's going to be in franchise mode, and it's also going to be big for the career mode as well. But what this is going to do is it is a new system that's going to create all of these random scenarios, storylines, based on player, based on the game you're playing that week, based on your personal play if you're in career mode. This thing is going to add, like Mike Young was saying, kind of make franchise mode feel like more of a living, breathing thing, like an RPG. There's so many different things that can happen. There's players you have to manage, there are coaches you have to manage, there's all these different personalities, and it's going to make franchise mode not feel like this boring mode of just, okay, we're just playing the game, okay, maybe we're making a trade, okay, we're going through the off season. No, each game, each week, there are going to be different things that you can do that's now going to have an effect on your player morale, how the team is, the chemistry, things like that. Here it says, "We've added an all-new in-game system that generates personalized, playable scenarios featuring interactions with characters via a variety of ways, including branching dialogue, dynamic events that reflect your performance and choices, challenges that build the story of your unique NFL career, from the moment you sign your rookie contract to your Hall of Fame induction." So part of that is for career mode, but like I said, the other part of this is for the actual franchise mode itself. For instance, let's say you're not giving Antonio Brown enough targets. He might get mad, and he might say, I need you to feed me the ball more, or he might demand a trade. Kind of similar to what he went through in real life. If you try to franchise tag a player, he might get unhappy and say, I want to hold out. If you cut a veteran player that was, a big morale boost to the team, that can affect the way the team looks at the management or the ownership, because, hey, why would you cut this guy that was such a big backbone of the team? All of these things can now happen in franchise mode, which is, very important in making it feel like something more than just a very bare bones, roster management mode. Another big change for the mode that we know is the Pro Bowl is returning this year. And it's actually the first thing you'll see when you play the game. They says, like, you can play the game and play now, and you can start Madden 20 as playing the Pro Bowl. But what this is going to do, obviously, is it's going to make franchise mode more fun, because with all of these superstar players on the field at one time at the end of the year, instead of just seeing them on a Pro Bowl list, you can actually go into the game and play the Pro Bowl with these guys. So obviously that's been one of the biggest community requests for a while. They've wanted Pro Bowl back. We finally got that back. Another huge change here for franchise mode is the ratings have been really spread out, and this is something that Madden has needed for a long time. It says, "We've adjusted the range of ratings that you'll see on players." It says, as an example, the rating difference between a 90 overall player and an 89 overall player is now so much larger. Each skill point you spend will be more impactful, as you can earn more skill points over the course of your career, or over the course of your franchise. In some cases, you will now see starters on your team with an overall in the mid-50s. Now that might sound crazy, because you think of mid-50s as someone that is not even on your team in Madden. That's somebody you wouldn't even have on your bench at the end of your bench, but that's because you're thinking of it from the standpoint of the older Maddens, how the rating system works. Now the rating systems have been completely redone, and as you know, in past Maddens, a guy that was a 95 overall, it didn't really feel that much different than a guy that was, say, 92 overall. It didn't feel that much different, but now going from 89 to 90 is supposed to feel very different. Something they said on the stream here is they said that there's actually going to be 400 less players at a 70 plus overall than in the previous Madden. So that's how big of a change is made. You're actually going to have instances where you might have a starter or two on your team that is in the mid 50s, but the mid 50s, how you thought of it last year, might be more of like a high 60s now. Think of it kind of like that. It also says that, you know, this will make the superstar players feel much more like superstars, because if you actually have a guy that's 95 plus, well, he's going to feel a whole world of difference now, because there's not going to be many people that can kind of reach that threshold. So that's kind of something that's really been needed, especially for franchise mode. So now that actual goal of developing your players is much more of a task now. It's actually more rewarding to develop a guy and get him to a 90 plus overall, whereas, you know, in the past you could draft a guy and have him at 95 overall sometimes the next year. It was just super easy to do this with multiple players a year. So now it's going to really feel like rewarding to get your team or get players on your team that high. Something else they spoke about are development traits. It says we made a large update to our development trait system to now support the new superstar abilities and the X Factor players, which is another new feature for Madden. The development traits in Madden 20 are normal, star, superstar, and superstar X Factor. Both Superstar and X Factor players can earn Superstar abilities, but only the X Factor players can learn or earn Zone abilities. We've also addressed one of the community's biggest complaints, players dropping down in development trait. In Madden 20, players can no longer go down in development trait at the end of a season. Something else they spoke about was Coach Mode. Coach Mode is also getting scenarios from this new scenario engine. All of the changes to development traits have a big impact on Coach Mode. Coaches will want to build up their teams with superstars and X Factor superstars via trades, free agency, and the draft. We've also added and overhauled a lineup to make franchise mode even smoother. So this is something they talked about on the stream. Basically, if you want to just be the coach and not really do too much else, you're still going to have these scenarios and storylines from the scenario engine. So how you manage your team, again, very crucial. The development traits, when you draft these guys, you know, you're going to be able to see, you know, based on their traits, what type of player they can possibly be. Like if they're a superstar player or X Factor type player, you know that they can grow into somebody that can have these, you know, some of these abilities that are in the game now, whereas in the past we didn't have these abilities. So your superstar players didn't really feel that special. They just had maybe, you know, they were fast, or they just had high ratings, but they didn't really play special. But now, because of that new feature, the players you draft that do turn out being these superstars are going to actually feel very different. They talk about progression updates. They said we overhauled our progression tuning, including making changes to XP gains from weekly training, actions on the field, and goal completion. These changes should ultimately lead to users being able to increase the overall of more players on their team, meaning they have more options in how to develop their roster. So something else they were talking about, they didn't go too in depth on the progression thing, but they did mention that they have tuned it. They made a lot of tuning this year about things that people complained about, things like progression, developments, traits, scheme fits. About if you had a player that didn't fit your scheme, it was a lot harder to upgrade them. It was almost crippling. Well, this year they said it's not going to be as hard. Just because he's not a particular fit for your scheme doesn't mean that he shouldn't be able to upgrade fast, because he could still be a good player. So they did a lot of tuning about things that, you know, they got feedback from that people were aggravated about. Contract updates. It says we've taken a meticulous pass on existing player contracts to ensure they match the NFL. They will not only be more authentic, but it will also make managing your roster's cap much more realistic. So another thing that, you know, a lot of the hardcore franchise community has complained about were contract updates, and that's been fixed now. You know, they're going to be more realistic, and this also goes into things like trades. They said they've really been heavily tuning trades, as people haven't been happy with the trade logic in franchise mode for a while now. You know, some trades, you know, some players are just impossible to trade for, whereas some players are just way too easy to trade for, you know, based on the type of player they are, when they should be harder to trade for. So they said they're constantly tuning the trade logic to make it better, but they think overall contracts, trades, free agency, all this stuff is going to be much more realistic this year than we have seen in previous years with Madden. They've done updates to the draft as well. It says we've taken a full pass on our rookie generators. People familiar with draft classes from the past few years are in for some new surprises, from names to bodies to ratings and more. Our more draft surprises is that rookies with superstar development or higher trait will have their development trait hidden until they've played through at least half of a season. These players have their abilities hidden until you reveal their development trait. This means that if you draft either a superstar or a X Factor superstar, you won't know exactly what you've drafted until later in the season. Use your preseason wisely. So this is actually very interesting and something that they think people are going to be excited about. So when you're kind of scouting these players and then you go to the draft, if you have a player that is, you know, if you have a player that's normal or a star player, it'll tell you that they're a normal player or a star player. But if you have a player that is either a superstar or a X Factor superstar, which is the top two, you know, type of development traits you can get, it won't tell you which one they are at first, because basically the idea is let him kind of blossom and kind of see, is he going to just be a superstar, or is he going to be one of those super elite X Factor superstars? You know, is he going to turn into let's just say, you could an example here, is he going to turn into just a superstar quarterback, which could be considered, you know, maybe a Ben Roethlisberger, right? Not to say that Ben Roethlisberger is bad, but let's just compare Ben Roethlisberger as he stands right now compared to Patrick Mahomes. Like, Patrick Mahomes is just on a whole nother universe right now. So when you draft these type of players, you're going to have to play through about half of the season, and they're going to naturally develop. You know, how much are they getting the ball? How are the storylines developing? And then once you get about halfway through, it'll reveal, are they a superstar, or are they like one of the league's, you know, most elite? And then that's when they're going to unlock their special abilities that you can use on your team for that player. So that's something that's very interesting. Another thing they talk about here, there are gameplay effects that were updated. They really didn't go deep on this, but it says we've implemented a ton of changes, like throw power overhauls to change in QB trajectories, which, I mean, we've been wanting different QB trajectories in the game for a while now. It says this is just one example, but they're going to go deeper on this in a few weeks when they completely go into gameplay. But they kind of just dropped a little nugget there, basically saying that, you know, there are going to be a lot of gameplay changes that will affect franchise mode. So depending on the type of level of throw power your QB has, he's going to have different type of trajectories, or can obviously make different throws. You know, Mahomes is going to be able to make a lot of different variety of throws, you know, than a guy like Matthew Stafford will, because they're just different types of players. So that's something that's very interesting to see. But those are really the main changes coming to franchise. The big things really sound like the scenario engine is making it, that's what's going to take franchise mode from being kind of just this boring, monotonous this thing that you play through to something that lives and breathes and changes. And they said they will be updating the scenarios throughout the year, so that's something they've wanted to do with franchise for a while. They want to be able to make the mode grow as the year goes on and add different types of things to the league or into the mode that you know, they're seeing happen in the real NFL. Certain situations, they can program that into the engine now. So that's one of the biggest changes that's going to make this feel more realistic. The ratings is going to be big too, because now this is going to change how you develop your team, how hard it's going to be, how challenging it's going to be to develop these teams. You got the Pro Bowl back. You have, you know, coach mode is going to be more interesting now because of the scenario engine. You've got all these new abilities and traits in the game now, so that's going to make the whole draft process a whole lot crazier than it was in the past, because you can be drafting some really potential crazy guys now. And they said that they also did tune the draft to not make it kind of, I guess, as easy as it has been. You know, people kind of learn the ins and outs and the tricks of the draft. Well, they've kind of overhauled that as well, so that you kind of have to relearn the whole thing again. But yeah, those are basically the big changes to franchise. Obviously, a good step in the right direction. There's still some obvious things missing, like, you know, still no coach carousel, things like that. But, you know, if they can continue doing this and adding this much to the mode each year going forward for the next few years, then, you know, we might really be back in a good spot. So what did you think about this? I'll have the article and I'll have the stream linked below, so you can go check out both. What did you think about this? Are you excited about the changes? Is it not enough? Let me know below. And as always, I will see you guys next time.